as media, but it did come in as a title effect. So the way we handle that in the Avid is we just have to rebuild the title. And usually there's going to have to be some adjustments made to the title anyway. You'll see that the position was incorrect. So we just have to correct the position, and we may need to make some other changes too. Maybe Verdana is no longer the font we want. Maybe now we want to use Copperplate. Oh yeah, that's much more spacey. And so now when I leave the title tool in the Avid, it's going to recreate the media for me. So there we go. We're all very happy, and we've brought in a sequence from Final Cut into Avid. The thing we did after this, after Final Cut started to become a bit more of a powerful editing tool, and people were actually able to finish in it, we began to get requests from people to take Avid offlines into Final Cut for finishing. And at first that seemed just like a crazy idea, but Final Cut was becoming more popular, and you could get a decent HD capable system for a lot less money than you could get from Avid. So we were getting a lot of requests for this kind of thing. So here we have a fairly complex sequence. This is this the cut down version? Let me see what the timeline says. Yeah, this is the cut down version. This is the original hour-long documentary. There's about 7 actual video layers. There's an 8th layer of just filler, lots of titles and some animated picture-in-pictures and various things. I'm just going to do the cut down for speed. Basically, all the Avid editor has to do is export an AAF file. And again, this is something that the Avid has built into it. It doesn't require a special plugin. And once it's all finished, we hop into Final Cut, and a plugin that we have here called Pro Import FCP can read that AAF file and turn it into a Final Cut Pro sequence. So I'm going to select the AAF file that my Avid just wrote, and I choose a sequence preset. If I was doing an HD conform, I might choose the HD appropriate sequence preset. In this case, I'm just going to leave it on DV and click Open. And the plugin reads the AAF file and converts it into Final Cut XML, which then Final Cut brings in. And when we're left with is a bin full of master clips that we're ready to redigitize. But more importantly, let's look at the sequence. And here we have all of our video layers and all the audio tracks. Everything's just brought in. And there's a couple of interesting things here. First of all, there were some titles in this documentary, and all those Avid titles have been brought into Final Cut. So there's some authors that they interviewed that you see that their name cards have come in. The style will have to be reapplied, but however, there will not be any retyping necessary. Also, there was some neat things in here, some picture-in-pictures I mentioned, and some of these picture-in-pictures actually animated. So you'll see as I scroll across this part of the timeline, there's a media offline slide that's sliding over another one. We are able to take those picture-in-picture effects into Final Cut, and we're even able to animate them as well. So if I zoom into this part of the timeline, and I scrub through, you'll see that there's position keyframes bringing in that slide in. So this is Pro Import FCP, which is a plugin that does sort of the opposite of the export plugin. It'll also import OMF files from Pro Tools. So there are some times when people have a sequence in Pro Tools that they need to bring back into Final Cut, and this plugin will also handle that. So those are our 3 products, and sort of a brief look at each of them. So, if it's okay with you guys, I'd be more than happy to answer some questions. So maybe we can close this connection down and switch back into the. I think you're going to have to switch me out of the screen sharing, Phil.
It's a good way to supply broadcast television stations with video news release. Broadcast television for video news release? Yes.
That's an interesting question. I suppose if you were working in Final Cut and you needed to provide some sort of video news release, I would almost think that you wouldn't be providing it using this. Instead, you'd probably lay off your final piece to tape and then provide that to somebody. Or if they wanted it as a file, you could export a QuickTime movie or something from Final Cut. These plugins are more when through the post process, you are starting in Final Cut and you need to end up in Avid or vice versa. Our translation tools come into play there.
Okay. Origin and the name of the company. Where did it come from?
That's an excellent question. I get asked that a lot. Well, let's see, do I have, here we go. This is the logo that we use. It's, if you can see, it's a kind of a wood cutting of a duck. Turns out in no, it was in end of 2000. No, that's not right. February of 2001. I think that's when it was. We were trying to come up with a company name, and we were coming up with just horrible things. Things like innovative workflow solutions and just boring names that described what we wanted to do, but people would have forgotten the name immediately. So my business partner, who I mentioned earlier is my dad, had suggested that we needed a name that didn't mean anything but just sounded cool. And his suggestion was that we try to do something like Apple. And I thought that that was a good suggestion, although it was, raised the bar a bit high. It's like, if I could name companies as awesome as Apple, then I could go into business for myself doing that. Well, anyway, I started looking through a history book that I had. There's a documentary series from the 70s called Connections, hosted by a man named James Burke.
Yep.
And if anybody in the room has not seen that series, I recommend it very highly. Anyway, I was looking through the companion book for that documentary series, expecting that I'd be inspired by something. And anyway, I saw this duck drawing, and I was reading about it, and I learned that in the 18th century in France, there were all kinds of inventors making automatons and robots. It was quite a big thing. And the caption beneath this duck said that Monsieur Vaucanson's automated duck, would eat and then flap its wings and then poop. And anyway, I guess I could have named the company Poop, but instead the two words automated duck sounded really cool together. Like I'd just never heard those two words together. That night I couldn't sleep because I just had automated duck going through my head. And so I went online and researched it some more and looked at automatedduck.com. It was available, but it had too many D's in it. It just didn't sound right. So I tried automatic duck, and I really liked the way it sounded. I mocked up a business card that night about 3 o'clock in the morning. I went the next morning to my dad, and I showed him the card, and I said, hey, what do you think about the name automatic duck? And he thought about it for a second, and he said, yeah, let's do it. And so that was it. Problem solved. We came up with the name of the company. We felt pretty good using the logo because it was drawn in 1784, so we didn't have any copyright issues. And so that's how we started. Our very first NAB, 2001, there was nobody doing what we were doing, and nobody had ever heard of automatic duck. So, we had to sort of, go against this thing about what is automatic duck, who are we? But, we've been fortunate in the last 9 years that a lot of people now know who we are, and even some of our customers use our name as a verb. They don't translate a sequence from Final Cut to Avid. They duck a sequence from Final Cut to Avid. So that's really cool that we've been able to have such a foothold in the industry. So
that's good.
Yeah, there you go.
Hate to cut you off, but that was great. A couple things we got. Wes has been gracious, and he's offered a giveaway coupon. I think you said to the plug-in of their choice, right?
That's right.
Okay.
The plug-in of your choice, if one of these things interests you, yes.
And we'll give that off in a raffle, and the winner will be getting in touch with you. Wes, we really thank you a lot. And everybody likes the beer can opener keychains. Right, those are great.
Hey, wait, just one thing about those. If you remember, everybody, go home tonight and go to automaticduck.com/keychains, and you can watch video from China of these keychains being made. It'll fascinate you, I promise.